I think I just probably ought to point out that I would anticipate that there are going to be more than one of these armoured columns going into Baghdad. You know, we're seeing this one. I think we're going to see a good few more. They're not going to allow that just to be just the one thing.
Certainly, if we have a look at the map and the sort of areas we have reports of these types of moves, the present one we're seeing here with the 3rd Mechanised Infantry, and this is a battalion group of about 30-40 vehicles and 600 or 700 people moving in. This is coming up from Hilla, and we certainly believe it reached this location here. There were descriptions from local wire reports of fighting in the neighbourhood called Yarmouk, which is there, also at Dora there. We have some reports that around the airport, which we know to date, of course, is held by the, much of it is held by the 3rd Mech Division, that they have been probing forward, perhaps a little bit more cautiously, but there have been moves there, and the first signs in the east of US Marines with 1st Marine Expeditionary Force and others moving in. The first reports are coming and they've reached the outskirts. During the rest of the day we can possibly expect to see, especially the Marines, who seem to be moving quite fast, heading in a little bit further. Certainly a spokesman at Central Command said these aren't groups you expect to go in and then leave again, suggesting very heavily if they believe they can occupy and hold a piece of the city, they will. And we heard there from the General Commanding 3rd Mech that basically this was making sure people realised that the US was here to stay, which I think is also a statement saying, don't worry, they're not just going to go in and disappear immediately. They're going to make sure that they start dominating the area and really pointing out that they own the ground.
Without wishing to sound like a tool of the Iraqi propaganda machine, I must read you out some copy from the Reuters news agency, one of its correspondents inside Baghdad, who's just been taken on a tour of the southern outskirts, southeast and southwest, and the presidential palaces areas, which you were pointing at a second ago, and he claims to have seen no American troops there at the moment. Obviously, all those correspondents operating inside Baghdad at the moment are strictly controlled by the Iraqi authorities. But this Reuters correspondent claiming that he saw Iraqi soldiers and paramilitaries on the streets preparing for a war in the city. But he saw no American troops, despite those claims by coalition commanders. And those pictures, of course, that we've just been watching.
The commander of the 3rd Mechanised Infantry Division is Major General Buford Blount. And we did see the interview with him saying that they are really going to move in there and dominate things. And it is, again, just interesting how fast they are managing to move. Some of the pictures here of the pickup trucks, the 4x4s and so forth, the Fox News correspondent with this column coming up from the south said that there was a difference in some vehicles. Some civilian vehicles were spotting the column, people were making it really obvious they had no wish to be involved in anything hostile and were moving away, whereas others apparently were barreling towards the convoy at high speed. Certainly there's one, if not two, pieces of footage that look as if there were people with guns in a pickup truck. Those were then engaged.
Certainly the pickup truck we saw there is not just an ordinary pickup truck burning. It's got to have been full of fuel. There was a lot of fuel in there, and I guess that's the sort of suicide trip that some of these people are on, to go and try and ram a tank. If you rammed a tank with that, you'd set it on fire. You probably wouldn't kill anybody, but it would disable the tank, or at least stop it moving for quite some time. You're seeing quite a lot of pictures of burning vehicles and burning weaponry and so on. Some of them may well have been taken out before, but it's certainly a very physical and visible evidence that the Americans are there. They're saying, we're here, we're breaking up your military capability, and we're not going away again. And that's very, very much countering the sort of things that are coming out of Baghdad news.
What about the situation at the airport? We were told that it was in coalition hands last night. The Iraqi information minister completely poo-pooed this and said that He put it the other way around, that yes, the American troops are inside the airport, but they're totally surrounded by Iraqi troops, and he implied that the Iraqi troops could pick them off at will.
Well, I must say, I had wondered where the Republican Guard have got to, and if they're surrounding the airport, then that would explain it. But I have to say, I do doubt that. I think that's a certain amount more of his, let's put it politely, bravado. The other word I was thinking of began also with a B, but I think that he is really trying to bolster up the Iraqi people and anybody that's remaining in Baghdad.
Because if the Republican Guard were around the airport, then the Americans could surely pick them off with Apache helicopters.
Indeed, because what you've seen of that, it's very, very flat, very open ground. They will stand out enormously on that, but not just in the daylight, but at night too, because you can see them through the thermal imaging sights. And any vehicle that is active will have an engine on, or the tyres will be hot, and you can see that through a thermal imager. So I'm afraid that the Americans would know and be able to see whether there was any sort of infiltration by people on foot, people in cars, or any sort of armoured infiltration. So really, if the Americans say they've got the airport, then they'll have the airport.
With the added bonus, of course, from the American point of view, that they got spy satellites, which we're led to believe can read a car number plate from space.
Yes.
So they could surely see the Republican Guard moving around even in minute movements.
Well, indeed they could. Quite how real-time that satellite information is, I don't know, but Francis probably does. But I do know what they have got up there, which really is real-time information, and that's those unmanned aerial vehicles, the Predators, and you've seen those flying around, and they really do give real-time information, both photography and thermal imagery of what is going on beneath them at the moment, and that's being beamed straight back down to the reconnaissance troops and the headquarters, all of whom are passing that information straight on to the people on the ground here. So they're getting real-time information of what there is in front of them, and that really is as much as anything what's enabling them to move ahead into the dead space, as it were, where there really isn't anything that's going to get in their way.
And there you see dramatic pictures of the US incursion into central Baghdad.